Welcome to the Wolfpacker Weekend Preview. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr, film analyst for On3. Took a look at the film of NC State's next opponent, Wake Forest. 13th ranked Demon Decons. It's a big game, one of the biggest games of this weekend. And Wake Forest coming off a huge game last week against NC State. Crazy game. Points everywhere, comebacks, dramatic wins, a loss for the Demon Decons, who were pushing their way into the college football playoff conversation. So, when you look at the Demon Decons on film, what do they do that makes them so unique? Where did they come from? Why are they good at football all of a sudden? We'll get into all of that, and really that's what we're getting into today on the Wolfpacker Weekend Preview, taking a very long look at Wake Forest's offense, because it's kind of like playing a service academy a little bit. What they do is so unique that you have to take time to prepare for just them. Before we get into that, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you don't miss anything from the Wolfpacker, and like the video. First off, it makes me feel good, and I appreciate that. But it also tells YouTube, hey, this doesn't suck, and lets everybody else know this doesn't suck. So Wake Forest, Demon Decons, their offense, it's built entirely on deception. And more specifically, it's built on making the defense do exactly what it wants to do. Stop the run. Every single linebacker, safety, defensive end, the defensive coordinator's mom, every defender wants to stop the run, except for maybe cornerbacks. That has been hardwired in football players since whenever they started playing football. 9th grade, 6 years old, whenever. The first thing you're taught is when you see the offensive line do this, you do this. And you've got to do it quick, because if you don't, you give them the opportunity to run the ball. And running the ball is a sin for defensive linemen and linebackers and everybody. So what Wake Forest does is they invite you to do that. That's all they want you to do. Come on, step up to the line of scrimmage. Come right up, stop our run. And in the meantime, in their really slow read option, what's happening is their army of receivers is running downfield into one-on-one situations. And the minute a linebacker or a safety takes one or two steps forward, once that happens, Sam Hartman pulls the ball, quarterback for Wake Forest, and he throws the ball into wide open windows downfield, because they have broken your coverage with play action. So really, it's no different than what any other team does. They just go to the 11th degree with it. And this is the result of it so far this season, is Sam Hartman has been really good in play action situations. 1,224 yards, 7th in the nation. All these numbers are in the top 10 in the nation. 11 touchdowns on play action. 0 interceptions. That is best in the nation. And here's the thing, is that PFF tracks turnover-worthy plays where the ball was intercepted but dropped, or a guy should have made a play on the ball and he simply didn't. Sam Hartman's got none of those either. And part of it is, as I said, the windows are so big that he's throwing into that there really isn't a lot of risk. The risk really comes from the defensive line, which we'll get to in a second, but the receivers are making plays on the ball down the field, and he's accurate and decisive with the football, and that is the real danger, is that they're individually good in a tricky schematic situation. And that's going to be a really important part of this game. Is Jaquarii Robinson, A.T. Perry, Taylor Morin. All these guys are individual players that have great skills. Morin is a good slot receiver, kind of a route-running receiver. Jaquarii Robinson has caught 11 of his 17 contested catches, and A.T. Perry, another big guy, number 9, physical receiver, really acrobatic. Each of them makes great plays in these situations. So it's going to be on the NC State defense to make sure that they're there to help on those good football players. And that means, to me, don't worry about the run. Just don't worry about the run, because this is what you really have to worry about. Sam Hartman throwing the ball in those situations down the field. Now, it's not just in play-action situations. And again, that's why they're so dangerous, is he's genuinely pulling in a great season. 1,361 yards passing, 17 touchdowns. Those are most in college football. His completion percentage is nearly 60%. and he has 63 attempts on the year. They throw the ball a lot. So it's not just in RPO situations or play action situations. They're throwing the ball at a high rate anyway. But the point I'm making here is that their running game is entirely built off of the passing game. You've heard you want to run to set up the pass in play action. You don't. This is the opposite of that. If you don't come downhill and you don't get your run fits, this is going to be a big thing for Drake Thomas this week. Then their guards during those situations are just run blocking. They're trying to get up to the second level. They're trying to block and move on double teams, defensive tackles down the field while everything else is happening. And they're good at that. And that gives Christian Beal-Smith or Justice Ellison, their running backs, smaller scat back guys, the ability to find the hole and go through it and get yards before they're even contacted. This is an offense that really does a good job at that. And they've got a couple of key run blockers that really are good at that. So then you're in the situation with you don't come downhill and you don't play those run fits, they might get 5 or 6 yards. But that's the gamble. And that's really what you've got to be able to do. If you don't have a genuinely fantastic defensive tackle or defensive end, somebody who wins his matchup so quickly that all the schemes and systems don't matter. Wouldn't matter if it was a regular read option or, a traditional I formation offense. Somebody that just wins and pushes the issue for the defense. If you don't have one of those guys, and NC State doesn't play that way, they play very much 3 down front, hold the line, let the linebackers scrape and tackle. The problem is that's what they're hoping. This is not a good matchup for NC State's defense because they are hyper aggressive. Their linebackers, Vi Jones and Drake Thomas, are in the tops in the ACC in terms of stops, the ability to get to the ball and make the offense lose that possession, lose that individual rep. But you can't do that in this game, or else you're going to be opening up RPO windows right behind you, and you're going to be putting your safeties and your corners on islands. So just play coverage. Gum up the passing lanes. Make Sam Hartman and his receivers earn it. To me, that's the biggest way you win this game. Otherwise, you're going to be playing 54-50 again. And that's exactly what Wake Forest wants. And remember, a bad day for this offense, because they're good at everything. It's not like it's just these play-action RPO situations. Even in their passing game, by the way, they love pick plays, which are just borderline legal, kind of the same thing as their main thrust of their offense with the play action. But they can go get the ball. That's the thing. They can go get the ball, and their offensive line is good so that they can pass block in those situations. You got to get them into 3rd and longs. You've got to get them into situations, negative plays for the offense, and even then they might make a play. That's why you got to get points. This game, there's no slow, methodical marches for the whole game. You can do that some because you want to keep them off the field, but you've got to go get some points. And this is where NC State has their best chance because Devin Leary has been really good this year, especially in deep passing. This is the thing. He may not be doing it as much, but almost 40% of his deep passes have been PFF's big-time throws, where the quarterback is generating the offense. It's a genuinely great throw into a second window down the field where he's generating big plays, big chunk plays outside of what the receiver or the scheme is getting him. So that's the best hope, is that he's able to do that in this game. And I think that you're not going to have just Emeka Emezi and Thayer Thomas catching underneath passes and running for some yards. That helps at times, but this is going to be a game where you need some big plays. Because Wake Forest is going to get those themselves no matter what you do. Even if you do give up on stopping the run, let them have 150 yards rushing in this game, get some timely stops, get in the red zone, all those things. They can still make you pay. Sam Hartman, in the last 2 games when it hasn't been working as well in the offensive side from the passing situation, and by the way, he still got 5 touchdowns in one of these games, ran for 72 yards and 88 yards in the last 2 games. So there's a lot of ways they can beat you. You're going to have to accept some of that. You're going to need Devin Carter and Anthony Smith to step up in this game. They're going to be a big part of this, where they need to go get some of those big plays. Anthony Smith has turned into a situationally, maybe it's later in games, but he's still a deep threat that can go get the ball and make big plays. Because it can't just all be Devin Leary. He can't do it himself. So yes, rely on your 2 tight end sets. Rely on your running game. Don't abandon anything that you do if you're NC State, but make sure when it's time to be aggressive, you go get those points. If there's a 4th down and some points are on the line, opt for the touchdown. You may lose the ball, but if you do score touchdowns, you're putting more game pressure on Wake Forest, and that's what you need to do. Now, last week I said that I thought it was pretty clear, not just because Florida State was a not good team, but from a matchup perspective, it was a game that it was one that I thought NC State clearly had an advantage from a schematic standpoint. This game, I'm not so sure. There's a lot of stuff that Wake Forest does that matches up poorly with the NC State defense, which, again, has been a very good defense this year. So if they give up points in this game, don't think it's some great failing of this team. They're just in a bad situation where sometimes football's about matchups and it's not lining up. However, because Devin Leary is having such a good season, they can absolutely win this game. They just got to go make it happen. That'll do it for your Wolfpacker weekend preview. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. We'll be back next Friday.